Good morning and welcome to the first episode of the Early Bird podcast. This has been the coming together of many months of planning and preparation, so I'm very excited about it, and it is also something that is very close to my heart. And the goal with this podcast is to share raw, relevant content in an open and relatable way, and I'd really appreciate it if anyone watching or listening to this could subscribe to the podcast either on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. And with no further ado, let us begin. So we have a very special guest on the first episode of the podcast today. He is from the UK, graduated with an honours degree in geography, and then went on to achieve a postgraduate degree in education at Cambridge University. After which he moved his career to Johannesburg, South Africa, where he became a housemaster and is now the headmaster of a top private school in Cape Town. I introduce to you Alex Gitlin. I'm just going to pop him up on the screen here behind me, and then we can get started. So welcome to the podcast, Alex.
Hello, Ollie. How's it? Thanks for having me.
No, I'm very excited to have you on. I think that this is a great opportunity for us to possibly discuss some very relevant issues that are happening at the moment in terms of just the education and system at the moment, in the way that we've had to drastically adapt to this new way of teaching, I think. And it's a very exciting time, and also a very strange time.
Yeah, it is. No, I think we're going through a huge amount of change at the moment in education. I think for me, it's really exciting. Like, I think education has needed a bit of a change for a while, and sort of one positive out of all of this is that potentially we're learning new skills, and we're seeing new ways in which we can teach. And when we do go back to physical school, hopefully we can take a lot of learning from this there. Yeah.
Definitely, I think that's a big thing in school, and I think that the education system has very much been pretty stationary in terms of growth and development over the last sort of however long, since the Industrial Revolution, where our traditional sense of teaching was formulated, as I understand, and we haven't necessarily changed. We've seen the world adapting around us, and in many ways the school system hasn't adapted that much until I think now, when we're really forced to completely look at a new way of schooling and education altogether.
Yeah, and I agree. So sort of the older sort of maxim is, if you look at schools, they're still often sort of rows and columns of desks and chairs, and that is very much on that sort of Victorian industrial factory sort of setting. And now we're seeing the whole environment in which we're teaching has changed. So it is exciting. There's so much good in which how schools have run, but
definitely.
They can be run better, and I think that's what we're starting to see and starting to learn from. So that's really, really cool. So identifying what really works and what we can change.
What we can work on. Okay, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And one of the things I just wanted to ask you, so how you sort of managed to how you got into teaching and then becoming a headmaster and went on this journey, because from originally studying geography, like, did you always want to go into teaching and education, or did you just decide that along the way?
Yeah, so I suppose, my first sort of idea of a career was when I was about 11 or 12, and I wanted to be a chef, and I still really enjoy cooking now. So for 11, 12, 13, I planning on being a chef. So I used to cook a lot at home, and on the weekends I'd do all the cooking. And then when I was at high school, I went to a really good school called Bedford in England, and I had a really good education and really great experience there. And during that time, I had three sort of formative teachers who remain friends today. So we still talk to each other today. And they really they really took me under their wing, and sort of through them, I sort of realised I wanted to teach. So from about 16 years old, I've always wanted to be a teacher. Never had any other sort of serious thoughts about other industries, and even to today, if someone asked you could choose any industry, any job right now, I would choose the job I'm in. yeah, really passionate about what I am, and I've been wanting to do it since 16. And then when I went
That's
I went to
amazing.
university and did geography because I wanted to become a geography teacher. So yeah, so yeah.
So, well, now we've gone through this journey over a few different schools, I think, over the last few years, and now you found yourself as a headmaster, and I think that's quite an amazing position to be in, and in terms of you are definitely bound by sort of a curriculum, I'm sure, and there are certain regulations and whatnot, but in terms of your ideals, possibly, and the way you'd like to see the education system change over the next few years, or the things you would like to bring to schools and to the education system that you think could better the education system, do you have any specific things around that?
Yeah, so I suppose if people talk about like a purpose and what do you want to achieve through education, and really that's for me is, if I was to sort of, I suppose, distill it down, is that I want to create people who are interesting and interested. That's how I sort of phrase it. And that's not just the students, that's the people, the staff, the teachers that work around and work with me. So I really want to create a team, students, parents, teachers, who really are interesting to talk to. So I want to engage with them because I'm going to learn, but also themselves, they are interested in engaging with the world around them. So I think comes with that, what would I want you, for example, Ollie, to leave school with? I think I'd really like you to have an interest in learning, like a real thirst to go and find your passion, to delve into it, to take on different experiences. That's really what I'm after. So much changes once you leave school, but what shouldn't change is the creation of that interest that we've built into you, that you enjoy learning, you enjoy reading. I'm a big believer in reading. And talking to people. So they're the sort of skills that I would like education to probably develop better. It really, I think sometimes we're in a culture. Sorry, you go. Sorry.
Sorry, no, I think that's something. It's very nice to hear from you that those are your sort of goals, and that's your goal, because I think that I don't know if this was also what you're going to touch on, but I felt like in the past and with some ways of educating, it sort of isn't all inclusive of a person. So sometimes, like, I know that different people have different sort of learning speeds and different skills, and sometimes the way that we focus school is primarily only on the necessarily sort of the academic side of it and the subject side of it, and people, I think, can be disheartened or end up with low self-esteem possibly because they feel that that's not what they're necessarily the best at. But what you mentioned is them finding their passion sort of outside of school, and just finding a passion for something and wanting to engage with that and learn more about that, which I think is definitely like the most important overall aspect of education.
Yeah. No, so yeah, I really believe in creating education, which is it's not just academics. So academics are core. Still at the moment there's a big movement from school straight through to university. But one thing I think we need to develop in South Africa, especially, is sort of trade schools and skills and artisan work. Need to see more carpenters and builders and cooks and chefs, artisans and skills. And so for me, it's education. It's not just academics. Academics is very, very important. But on top of that, I really believe in the importance of service. In the importance of sport. I believe you can learn so much through sport that's going to sort of empower you and improve your life as you go forward. The arts, my singing is not a strong point, nor is my music playing, but I really value those. And when I get the opportunity to watch people who's their strengths, it's just amazing to sit there and watch people who can thrive on the stage. It's wonderful. So I really want to sort of have the opportunity to give everybody that comes through our school the chance to experience those areas. I think in some of those areas you're going to participate. You're not going to be probably the top dog in everything, but as you experience all these different areas, you're going to find that one where you really do excel, and you're going to learn to sometimes pull people along with you, and also in other areas, you're going to learn that you're actually going to be a follower. And I think a big role as we seek to become leaders in the world around us, as part of leadership is also following. Sometimes it's stepping back and let other people who are better than you, find the answers. So I think by having education and being engaged in a whole variety of different pursuits, you're going to find where you can lead, and you're going to find where you can follow, and you're going to find sort of those things that, just as you've done now with this podcast and stuff, you find those things that really excite you and get you up in the morning and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I want to create an environment that creates experiences. I think that's really important. Yeah.
Definitely, and I would have to say and actually give credit, because I found that, well, where I was at my old school, at a different school in Cape Town, before I came over to Redden, where I am now, I was quite sort of insecure with myself, and the way that we did our teaching and learning there was sort of very much focused on specific aspects only. So if you didn't necessarily fit in with those primary aspects, I ended up feeling like I was less than those around me. And I think it led to sort of quite a big drop in my personal sort of self-esteem. And then when I moved schools and found this massively diverse group of people, I could find, oh, well, this is something that I really enjoy, and this is something that I struggle with, so let me learn from other people in this area. And I think that sort of really led me to find the things that I'm passionate about. And sort of now, like with this podcast, my ultimate goal is to go onto the sort of social media space after school with YouTube and doing podcasts and videography. And I think that school actually really has helped me in the past to learn where my passions lie, and also things that I'm not necessarily so good at that I can work on and follow other people. So that's pretty much what you've been saying, which is, it's just been a very big thing for me, I think.
Yeah, no, I've been at Redham since January. One thing that stands out for me, that sort of, in terms of my previous experience, my previous roles in other schools, and even when I was at school myself, is I think there's a culture where we are of hard work. I think there's an expectation that people work hard, not unfairly, but work hard. And beyond that, it's total acceptance. So whatever your interest is, I found the community extremely supportive. So whether you're a sportsman or a musician or a dancer, dancing is very big, or an academic, academic is your thing. I find that there is a really accepting community and celebration of people's success. You're not pigeonholed. So if you're not it's not a case that if you don't do this, you're not celebrated. It's wherever your success is. I found it very open to support, which is really good. I think it's good.
I definitely can also vouch for that and say that that's definitely something that I've found and sort of seen that in all the different aspects. And there's also the mix of people. I think because of that and because of that philosophy of the school, we're getting a really diverse group of people. And I think that makes it less sort of, it takes out that necessarily the traditional sense of the jocks or the cool kids, and it just creates it's diversity. There's no sort of sense of superiority and inferiority. It's just different groups of people that enjoy different things, and everyone's celebrating that.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So I think that's a great sort of point that you've made around that. And another thing I wanted to ask is something, I think this is something that people often grapple with and think about, but in terms of yourself and possibly your students, what would you define as them being successful or success for them?
I suppose it's an inner sense of sort of contentment, happiness. I think happiness is personal. It's personalized. It's not money based. Some people have the fortune of, or the, excuse the pun, or the luck of finding their passion, and that's well paid. But certainly it is happiness. I don't think is found following the paycheck. I think there's a sense of how do I know I'm happy? I suppose from a professional sense. So obviously you got your family as well, and those sort of your family and professional lives obviously deeply overlap. But from a professional sense, how do I know I'm happy? Every day I get up, I am excited for the day. I've never once woken up not wanting to go to school. I think that has an indication to me that it fits. How else do you know if you're happy? I suppose if you have a sense that you're making a difference, I think that's really key. I think humans, we're social beings. I think we like to know that we're moving people forward, we're connecting with them. So certainly when I sort of look at my day, and I do look at the end of a day, I'll look back and literally say, did I do my job today? Did I, to the point, literally, did I earn my salary today? How do I equate that? Did I make some sort of difference? Did I connect with someone today? It might only be a quick conversation in the quad as we're walking across the next lesson to break, or it may be a staff member who pops in with an issue and I'm able to help sort it out. So I think happiness is on making a difference, and doing so in a field, a profession, that you really enjoy. And if you're getting up every morning and you're doing so willingly, then I think that's a pretty good indication that you're in the right space. So I think it's that a lot of that heart stuff. I think also to be happy, you've got to be challenged. You've got to keep learning the whole time. Otherwise, you fall into that trap of the comfort zone and things go a bit stale. So I've been very lucky enough to be able to connect with people who I feel are a lot better than me, who I can learn from. And I connect with them quite frequently, deliberately, to share my viewpoint, but then to say, okay, what would you do? So finding purposeful challenge, I think really, which makes a difference to other people, I think that's a pretty good way of finding happiness, really.
Definitely. So your purposeful challenge, I think, that just relates to the point of living with a purpose, waking up with a purpose, feeling that you have something to do in your life and you're going to make a difference to other people's lives. And I think that's the biggest sense of joy and fulfillment that you can sort of experience, is just knowing that you're here for a reason. And I think that also comes with finding your passion, because you're passionate about something and you think, this is my calling, this is my passion, this is where I can make a difference, and this is how I can possibly have a positive impact on someone's life or help someone else in the sense of using your skills to benefit someone who maybe has different skills, and it's an equal exchange possibly also.
Yeah. I think some people I believe it must probably be quite stressful for people at times when they're trying to find what their passion is or what their purpose is, and they're not sure. And I think that's part of the process. So I'd hate young people such as yourself to be really stressing every night to say, geez, I still don't know what my purpose is. My best mate has a clear idea of where he's going and I have no idea where I'm going. That's learning. So I was in a lucky position where I'd sort of, by 16, I think I knew the career I wanted to go into, but I couldn't tell you that there was like a defining moment when suddenly something happened and that was it. I really, obviously had been conversations over time that sort of pulled me in that direction. I don't remember a single event that said teaching is the thing. It just, at some point it was. So it may take time to find your passion and your purpose, and you're going to probably have to do, maybe move through a number of careers or a different set of interests, or move from music to sport to back to some other aspect of culture. You're probably going to have to do a lot of dabbling and stuff to find your passion. So I don't think there's necessarily any time scale to that. I don't think in the next 6 months everybody's going to have a passion, and that's fine.
I think so. I'd agree with you. I don't know. I felt like school is a way also of sort of exploring a huge variety of different paths and different things that you could possibly be passionate about, and some people find their passion within school, like something maybe they realized that they wanted to go into engineering, or they love maths or history or whatever it is. And some people, it takes a longer time, but I think we all just our life is just a journey. There's not necessarily any final destination. It's just we're on a constant journey, and we just carry on living on that journey and learning. And I think that's what's so exciting about it.
Yeah, I read a book, and for the life of me, I can't remember the title of the book. But there's a lady author, and it was just a really nice short. She really painted a really cool picture, I thought, sort of resonated with me, that she was basically saying that sort of opportunity is passing by us all the time, and they're all, as they fly past, they're almost crying out for somebody to grab them. They want to be used, this opportunity, and I just thought that was really, I thought it was a nice image. The sense, I think sometimes we get sort of stuck in gloom and thinking, okay, I'm sort of bogged down, I'm in a rut. But if you change that mindset and realize that maybe all these different ideas and opportunities are passing us by, even when we're in a real, not particularly happy space, I think that can change us. So I have this sort of words I sort of say is constantly eyes up, eyes wide. So for me, I think if we live up with our life, with our eyes up, so we're constantly looking and we've got a nice wide view, we're probably going to see more opportunities than other people can. And if we can see more opportunities because we're looking for them, that probably means we're going to be able to take some more opportunities, which means that maybe we will get to whatever we consider success to be ahead of other people. So I think if we can live eyes up, eyes wide, I think we will see things sooner, quicker, more often than other people, and we will develop, and then hopefully we can help those people as well by saying, well, maybe change your viewpoint, go from looking at the ground to looking up, and maybe things will change. So I think overall I think it's a really exciting time that we're living in. Like, I'm genuinely excited for your generation. I think you're going into a really exciting period of technology, of change. The pandemic we're working through at the moment, it's going to have massive implications on the way in which we live going forward. So yes, there's huge amounts of obstacles and pressures we have to get over. The economic crisis that we're currently sort of in, but we're nowhere near the bottom of yet. The flip side of that is, I think, your generation is going to, I think, make some real difference. You're the first generation that's really aware of what we are doing to the planet. You're the first generation that's not only got that awareness, but is starting to see some solutions to it as well. And so because you see the problems and you're starting to see some solutions, you're going to be the first generation that can really start actioning them as well. So I'm quite excited for what I'm probably quite jealous of what your generation could actually really do for this this planet. Exciting times. The next 10, 20 years going to be really cool.
Definitely. I'm very excited, and just coming back to this time now also that we are currently in and currently experiencing, I have found that it's a very sort of unique time, I think, or possibly even in history, where we are all sort of forced to step back, because I think over the last while, I don't know necessarily how long, but I think that the speed of which we do everything is just sort of increased, and how many things we try to fit into a day. And so we're living on this sort of constant edge of burnout. I mean, even for me, this is personally my opinion and what I've sort of experienced. We're living on this edge, and it's just given everyone a chance to just step back for a moment and just say, is this the best way forward to do this? Is this necessary? Is this the best way forward? I think that's, for me, it's been a very big reflection point for me, to just step back for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the lockdown that we're currently living in, it really is. It has been giving us a forced slowdown, and you can start identifying what's really important. That's really good. You mentioned the term burnout, and it is often applied. And again, somebody else had written that burnout is burnout comes when you've got a lack of passion for what you're doing. So if you're working really hard, but it doesn't really sort of doesn't resonate with you, that's often when burnout comes. I have found that I think I've got quite a good work ethic, but I think that is really based on the fact that I genuinely enjoy what I'm doing. So I think maybe going back to one of your earlier questions in terms of what is happiness, if you're feeling that complete burnout, it's possibly an indication that what you're engaged in isn't really what sort of smacks with your soul, that resonates. Because if it does, I think the capacity to energize yourself is always there. Yeah,
definitely. So I have a question. So would you think that then, if you are passionate about something and you're very passionate about something, you wouldn't, because I feel that there's still a point possibly where even if you're passionate about something, if you're pushing yourself even in that field or in that area to too high of an extreme, that you could still lead to feeling burnt out and tired, and it could have a negative effect on you in a way.
Yeah, I don't think you can keep doing. You can't keep adding an hour to your day. At some point, the day is going to end. So, yeah, you have to be very mindful of how you operate. But I think that's where you've got to look at your other aspects of your life. So for me, for example, exercise is an important part of my day. So I need to stay healthy, energized. I know I need to exercise. I've got to make sure also that I'm connecting with my family. That's something I'm learning to do. If I'm not the best at that, I must admit. Sometimes work does sort of get in the way of family time and my time that I need to spend with my wife and my kids. But as I get older and a bit wiser, hopefully, I am learning to do that a bit better. So I think maybe if those aspects, people talk about balance. I'm not sure how that plays out in reality, really. So if you look at all the successful people, maybe all is wrong. If you look at a lot of successful people, the area in which they're successful takes up a large proportion of their time, if that makes sense. So that then this concept of balance, so it's 50% work and 50% life, family, probably isn't true. For most successful people, it might be 60-70% of their passion area, and then the rest is in the 30-40%. But I think does it work? So does that, however your ratio of your life, work, family, self, does that ratio work? So if I'm spending 15% of my day on myself, that could be reading a book, it could be going for a run. Does that work for me? If I've got 20% of my day for my family, does that work for me and my family? If it does, then I think you've got that concept of balance in place. So balance is probably the wrong term, but that's the way ahead.
Maybe it's just, instead of balance, it's just maybe the constantly reevaluating your priorities and what's important to you in a way.
Yeah,
I guess with your passion. Yeah. So if your passion is 80% of what's most important to you, or not necessarily to say that your passion would be more important than your family to you, but if that's what you feel, if 80% doing that is what makes you happy, and 20% you can spend really nice concentrated time with your family and your kids, then I think that's where you should go. I think everyone has sort of a different little balance, but it's not necessarily balance in the sense that it has to be equal. It's just balance in the sense that it works for you.
Yeah, and the people around you. So if we're trying to make a difference and we're moving through life, and we have the understanding that as I'm moving through, I'm not connecting as much as I should be with my family or whatever, they're those sort of causes for burnout, I think. So as long as you mentioned there, as long as we're consistently sort of reviewing how we are, work, family, self, and sort of we're greasing those wheels in whatever proportion we need to, then I think we can go. It's when there's a bit of stick in one of those areas, that's when the problem comes through. Yeah.
When we tend to feel sort of tired in what we're doing, and maybe possibly leading to feeling burnt out, I think.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to a lot of podcasts recently, because obviously I've been planning for this for a while and just trying to get as much inspiration and listening to different people. And one of the most sort of interesting people who I've been listening to is Russell Brand. I'm not sure if you're familiar, if you've heard any of his podcasts or anything before.
No, I haven't heard his podcast. I know of him from growing up in the UK. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he does a podcast called Under the Skin, where he speaks to a lot of different people, but he has some very interesting points that he makes in some of the podcasts. And I think one of the most relevant to me, and a point that he made that I listened to the other day, was just the fact that every day he will sit down with himself and say, how am I living? Am I living for external things, searching for external things, or am I living for joy in myself and joy in other people and benefiting them? And it just goes to that point of constantly looking at yourself and reevaluating what you're doing. And I think that's where our biggest learning can come in, is just looking at our own mistakes and saying, oh, I'm making this mistake, and being conscious of it, and then acknowledging it and finding a way forward.
Yeah. And all this stuff that we're talking about, this is what we should be practicing at school. So this is far more important. I'm a geography teacher, so I've been teaching river meanders for a long time, and there's value in that. There is value in that knowledge. I think sometimes we talk about just having to have skills. You've got to have knowledge as well. So you can't apply a skill if you don't have a base understanding. So knowledge is important, but maybe the old way of school has been too much towards that content and theory and knowledge, and we now need to get to those skills. So we should be talking about this, exactly what we're talking about now. So you're talking about intrinsic motivators, things that that they just feel right. So we need to be talking about those in a school situation. So when I talk about interesting and interested, this is exactly what we've got to be bringing in, and challenging and exciting people around.
Yeah, for me, this makes me very, very excited, and I think that there are different things. I think if we could get a balance in the sense that we just discussed, and maybe it's not a 50-50, but if we could get more sort of discussion-based learning and very engaging sort of skills, as you call them, involved with our schooling more, instead of primarily only focusing on the content, I think that it would bring a lot more passion possibly back to school, and joy and excitement around learning and around that. Because for me, I know there's been a lot of times where I've felt very demotivated, like I mentioned, just in terms of, because academics for me is not necessarily my strongest point. I can often find myself that, especially for example, with maths, I've been lucky. I've changed doing maths literacy now, which I've enjoyed much more. But I've found myself sometimes comparing myself in the sense of academics to my peers and my friends, and I've realized now I do have skills in other areas, and I'm looking at myself as a whole person, rather than just comparing myself in certain aspects to other people, because I think that can sort of demotivate you in the areas that you are passionate and you are possibly skilled at.
Yeah, so I think that's where possibly school has been, in terms of it's that real sense of sort of academic focus, and if you're not achieving there, then you're not in the mix, sort of thing. I think that's changed. Most of the schools that I've been in my time in my career, I think that it isn't as strong as it used to be. Like, I think people now see that you can be successful. It's okay to be not number one in academics, because we know that what you really thrive in is the theatre or the sports field or music or community service. So I think that environment has changed. certainly in the spaces that I've been in, it needs to change more. It really does need to change more. And that's probably where education needs to go. We've seen the start of that change, but it has to get bigger. I think one thing, interestingly, we need to change to help us change more is that still we're educating in the main to then go on to tertiary institutions, to university. So if universities came back to us and they revolutionized the way in which the selection process took place. So instead, if there was a mention that your academic results were not as important, and we're going to see a focus on involvement in the community, for example, which has begun, but maybe it could be strengthened. So if they changed the way in which people were selected to go onto university, the skills they were looking for, that would really give us that impetus to change the way we're teaching at school, because we want to continue that learning process. So we need to make sure that we're giving you those skills that allows you to thrive into the future. So, but I do think universities are going through some of those changes. But interestingly, someone said to me in the past, remember, Alex, education, the wheels of education change very slowly. And I've always grappled with that personally, because I've looked at other industries that are equally as large, or certainly the organizations within that industry are large. And I've seen that those organizations have changed pretty quickly. You put a dynamic team in there and huge amounts can happen in a relatively short amount of time. So for me to say that education changes slowly, I do think, well, maybe that's because no one's ever tried to change it quickly. So I think if you can get that right impetus, I think a huge amount could happen in a relatively short time. I am a big believer in action. Action does win out. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to hit some speed bumps. You're going to realize you should have done something else, but then you can change again quickly and get back on course. So I think as soon as you start doing things, you get better. If you sit in the room and just postulate all day, in reality, not much is changing. So I think action wins out.
Definitely, I'd have to agree. Just on that point of us discussing about sort of the education system and make it more equal between skills and the sort of traditional sense of education and more factual learning. Would you possibly say that we don't necessarily need to spend as much time at school as we do? Because we do spend sort of a majority of our days at school. So we're 6-7 hours a day at school. And I know that sort of with the online learning, different schools have sort of approached it in different ways. For example, my sister's school they do a different, she's in a lower grade, but they also do it in a slightly different way where they give the students the work at the beginning of the day. And then they have a certain amount of time they have that whole day to get the work done in whenever they feel would be the best, and then they have certain periods where they can check in with their teachers and ask questions, and I think it maybe gives people a chance to focus a little bit more also on things around that and spending time with their family, eating lunch with their family, and maybe having some important discussions that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, so a few things there. So if we take out online and assume we're at school, so your first point was, should the length of the day change at school? Not necessarily, no. We mustn't necessarily look at how long we're at school, but what are we doing whilst we're at school? I think that's where we need to be focusing. So is there value? If there's value in us being there our day roughly at school is 7:30 to, let's say academics are finishing around 3, but then we might have sports or extra lessons afterwards. So that time may be very, very, well, I hope it is very, very valid. So we should be investigating what we're doing in that time period as opposed to the actual time itself. Online learning, I think we're all working out how we do this. So there are different models at play, and some of them are age appropriate. So my son is in grade 7, my daughter's in grade 5, and they have different amounts of, they have less online time with their class, and more work is set, and they go and work on their own, and then they check in again later. Whereas us in the senior school, we have a lot more actual Google Meet class times. So there's age appropriate stuff. And then there's just the learning. We've never done this before to this degree. We've been doing this now for sort of 2-3 weeks. We're very new to this. So I think the longer this goes on, the better we're going to get. So I think a common trait at the moment has been, we've been applying, I think everybody's been feeling quite overworked. Not only the teachers who are having to prep all this work, and they're having to learn all these skills to get it across to you, but we've been also giving you too much work to do. So your day probably has got, I think, significantly longer. Already over the last week, we're learning how to dial back a bit and really interrogate the work that we're giving you. Do you really need to do this? Is there real learning coming out of it? And if there isn't, why are we giving it to you? One thing that's coming out of this learning space, this online learning space, is the real need for connection between people. And the one thing that is overridingly clear about school is the fact that it gets everybody together, and that's amazing. So it's that sort of social connection thing that we quite clearly, everybody, I think students, like, you're missing your teachers and you're missing your mates, and I can assure you the teachers are missing their fellow colleagues, peers, and they're missing you. I mean, every day I get from teachers saying, "Geez, academically we're doing well. Like we're still teaching the curriculum. We feel we're making progress. We feel that learning is taking place, but I'm just missing that physical connection with my class." So, in terms of how we're going to go into the future, for one, I don't know exactly yet. But I do know it's going to have to involve some physical space where people can come together. Now, whether it's rows and columns of chairs again, or whether it's sort of, these sort of pods or these hubs or whatever, I don't know. But I'm really excited to find out. But I do know it has to involve people coming together, and that's what we're finding in this online period. And that's why I think being in education at the moment, and probably all industries, because every industry has been changed by the way that we do things. But education space at the moment is really, really exciting, because we're seeing real spaces in which we need to move into.
I'd have to agree with you 100%. And on that point of us needing to be physically connected to people, I think it shows. You can tell also when, for example, when we are on an online class, it's much harder to judge when someone else is speaking. So we would have to keep our microphones on mute. Even when you have a meeting with more than sort of 3 or 4 people, we have these social skills that we've also developed, I think, over the years from being with people and being around people. And you can tell when someone's about to speak and you won't speak and you can keep quiet. But I think it's much harder to see that in an environment where we are looking at a screen and everyone sort of just starts speaking at the same time.
Yeah. And things like humor. Humor's been lost. I mean, humor is such an important part of learning, of education. And I'm not talking here just about school. I'm talking here, life. You've got to have humor, and it's a lot harder to carry humor through the internet. And one thing we in the future we may be going into sort of a hybrid space where some of us are back at school physically, and some of us remain at home, and we'll have to teach to both simultaneously. I was having a conversation with a parent a couple of days ago, and we had masks on, because when we go out now, and regulations are we have to have masks. It's really hard to talk to someone with masks on, because you can't read. It's very hard to read expressions, and the mask right up to your eyes. You miss a whole load of what's going on.
Yeah, you do. There's a whole lot that you just can't see or can't tell about what's happening, how they're feeling, or.
Yeah. So I mean that's a learning in itself. I mean it's really interesting. Go and have a conversation with someone with masks on. You do doubt yourself. I mean, are they are they laughing with me, or are they upset? It's difficult because you can't see those expressions. So yeah, so the ability to be with one another is such an important part of learning, I think. It's really, and that's an awesome positive thing. It just shows that we are social beings. We need to be together. Yeah.
Definitely, I would have to agree. And another thing with the fact that we are social beings is I've also found in terms of my schooling, I've found that my sort of productivity and the amount, though, although we've had quite a lot of work, the amount that I've been able to sort of get through during the day and the amount of things that I've managed to do has drastically increased since we went into this lockdown. So, for example, I would usually do my gym or my training before school, my exercise before we start, and then I have school. We finish at 3, and then after that I can go at 3:10, and I've been doing some lessons teaching people a few things like how to do video editing and Photoshop and things like that. And I've been able to go into a lesson then at 3:10. Whether if we were driving, though, I wouldn't have been able to get to that meeting in time, and then after that I can do another thing, and so I can finish at 8 and get through this mountain of things that I would never have been able to do otherwise. And it does create some sort of concern for me of how I'm going to keep up with all of these things once we start going back to a more traditional way of moving around and a physical world as opposed to this online
exactly
world
what
that we've created
we're
for
learning
ourselves.
now is, so I think our academic productivity, maybe our whole day productivity has increased through this process. So our job now is, when we do go back to physical school, is how are we going to bring the online into the physical, and what can we learn? Because there has been, I think that we've been surprised with how well the learning's going. I mean, we're getting that stuff across. We're not losing ground there, but we are losing in other areas. So I think this online learning has allowed you to chunk your life a lot better. So you've got segments. It's my time, it's online, and then it's exercise time or online course time of your own choice. So I think it has allowed us to chunk our day better. I wouldn't want this online learning, though, as it is, to be what school becomes in entirety. I think you've just got to pull out segments that are really good. But I don't want to be teaching you or talking to you or learning from you like this every single day. It'll be nice to also go for a walk or have a cup of coffee, or exchange books or whatever it may be. But there are aspects that are really good. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. And my other concern, I think, has been, well, for me, this has been a concern for me for sort of the last 3 years, and I've ended up moving between a few schools and whatnot. But for me, it goes back to what we were discussing earlier about balance and passion. For me, my biggest passion is I love sort of working. I love doing things like this. I love filming. I've been very blessed to have gotten quite a few different opportunities to go overseas and film and to do quite a big range of things. And I've sometimes felt limited by the fact that I have to necessarily be at school from 8 until 3, and it's taken sometimes away from the other things that I'm very passionate about. So I've debated whether it would be better for me to work from an online syllabus or possibly a different way of learning for quite a while. So that's just been sort of a constant battle for me to try and figure out what would be the best solution to that. And I was interested to hear what your sort of insight to that could possibly be, and if you have any sort of solution that you think would possibly be beneficial for someone like me whose passions are very much, I'm very clear, luckily, on what I want to do, and my passion is there, and I've been presented with some opportunities. And so how would I go about that?
So I'd like to think that if there are opportunities that came your way, that really spoke to who you are, who you want to be, that we would do, and I feel we would do our utmost to allow those opportunities to happen. saying that, we're Redham, and there are parameters, things that sort of describe who we are, and we can't sort of ignore those. But I believe that our boundaries can be porous, so we can try and make it work for the group, everybody, and then hopefully it's our job to also try and make that space for you as an individual to thrive. But for other people, there are many different varieties of school, different school structures, different school days. Everything from homeschooling to boarding schools, for example. There's all different types of schools. So it is not the case that everybody fits every school. Very, very definitely not the case. We, Redham, we need to know exactly who we are, and I think if we know who we are and we can publish that, we're going to attract those people who fit to that model. But it might be that other schools are better fits because they do things slightly differently. But as much as we can within who we are, it is part of learning that we also try and accommodate people. So yeah, I'd like to think, Ollie, we have helped you, and we would help you, and we would do so as much as we can. And I think all schools would help their students as much as they can. But maybe at some point, if you want to be a world-class violinist, for example, it may be the choice that you need to move to a school where that is more part of their DNA, part of who they are, for example.
Yeah, definitely. No, I definitely wouldn't say that Redham hasn't. I would say that Redham has always been super supportive of everything that I've done, and I've been very much been able to be part of the ethos of the school and part of doing various things, such as I used to do the sound for the plays in the prep school and help with the lighting, and because I also do DJing, which is another passion of mine. And so I've really been I think that the school has definitely helped me to grow those passions in a very sort of helpful way. And it's just for me a question of, now I have this very clear vision of what I want to do, and it's not to say that a school, especially my school, wouldn't help me with that, but it's just, is it possible within the confines of because there are obviously some sort of regulations and confines of the school, and is it possible to achieve everything and do everything that I feel passionately about and want to do over the next time in this environment?
I think if we're talking about you and us as Redham, I think we can give you those skills that will allow you to do everything that you want to do. And I wouldn't want you to be doing everything that you want to do in the next couple of years. Otherwise, the rest of your life is going to be a bit boring. So I think we will give you the foundation, and some of that foundation is going to be knowledge, and some of that foundation is going to be a skill, and some of that foundation is the experience you have on the sports field, and some will be from the theatre. And all of those experiences that make up your school life will then help you get to the subsequent next levels. We're not going to give you everything that you need to have to be who you believe you can be. But I think we're going to give you everything that you need to get to the next step. And then you're going to learn in that environment to get to the next step. So, I think I wouldn't want people to be missing out on school experiences. As long as a school is creating frequent and diverse experiences, I think that's one of the best educations you can get, or the best education you can get.
I think that it can be a slight challenge to not want to sort of jump the gun, maybe, and possibly, and just want to do everything in like you said, you don't want to do everything in the next 2 years and not have anything to do after that. So I do think that that's very relevant and important, and school does give you a whole wide variety of diverse, it shows you diverse cultures in a way, and you can learn about different people, and you get to meet new people and have experiences with sport, and there's a whole wide variety that you possibly wouldn't be able to get in a different sort of situation.
Yeah, so Ollie, I think you know where you want to go. So I think what you're experiencing at the moment is that bit of tension. It's like, okay, I need to get there, but maybe the school environment, not negatively, but the school environment is holding me back a bit because I know I'm ready to get there. And I think that's probably proof that the school or a school is educating. So I do believe that by the time you sort of get to your senior years, there needs to be that sense of tension between being in school and wanting to be outside of school, because that means that we have readied you for the next challenge. So the fact that you have this, I think it's a healthy tension. You know what you want to do, and you can't wait to get there, but you still have to go to geography lessons. It's not a bad thing. It's part of growing up. It's part of growing up. So you're going to have to work through it and talk to the school if the opportunities come up, and we can sit and we'll make plans. As I say, I think most schools would try to do. But the fact that you feel this healthy tension is a good thing. It's a good thing.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you very much for that insight. There's one more point, and it's sort of an idea as well as just something I wanted to mention, just to sort of start to wrap it up. But I wanted to, so if we just for as an example, now we are going through quite a sort of difficult time, and we have been in a privileged position being at a private school and being majority of our students, teachers being sort of financially stable and able to, so we've been able to carry on with our learning. And there's been so many other people that have really struggled and haven't been able to carry on with their learning and their education, and I think that could create a lot of stress for people. And do you think that there is a possibility of possibly doing some sort of collaborative work with possibly a Redham students and one of the schools in a less sort of privileged area, and partnering a grade 11 student from Redham with a grade 11 student from Westlake, for example, and just being able to chat and answer questions that student would have, and be able to share our information that we've still had access to with them?
Yeah, I think Ollie, I think there's massive scope for opportunities going forward. I really do. I'm due to have a meeting with the sort of director of a certain segment of schools that do great work. Unfortunately, we haven't obviously been able to meet in person because of the lockdown, but we will be meeting online to see where that could go. We recently had a really positive community involvement where we've raised lots of money for our community, our local community. I think, interestingly, this pandemic also hasn't just affected the less affluent. We're in a very privileged position. It also has affected all segments of society. Given that industries in total have shut down, it is affecting everybody. So I think the fact that people of all affluent levels, backgrounds, are seeing the impact, are feeling the impact of this virus, may provide the impetus for everybody to start helping each other more readily. So that sense of collaboration, I think, is growing, and I think we are in a position where we can provide that support and assistance. Yeah. So what that is exactly at the moment, I'm not sure. But going forward, I think there are huge opportunities. For a school.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the opportunities are massive. I'm unfortunately running out of recording space, so I think we're gonna have to sort of wrap it up there. But I just wanted to say, thank you so much for joining me and for coming on this venture with me and being part of the first episode, which has been very exciting to me. And I think that we've really covered a lot and spoken about a lot of very relevant things to a lot of people. And I hope that this will be able to sort of invoke some thoughts from other people, and it definitely has for me. So I hope that I can just take this forward into the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Ollie. Thanks for asking me. I wish you all the best with this venture. To see you doing something that you enjoy, you're passionate about. That's why we teach. So this has been I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very, very much, and good luck with all your future podcasts.
Thank you very much. If you can stay on, I just want to just quickly chat to you after I wrap this up. But I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for listening or tuning in or watching this podcast. And if you found any of this content to be relevant or interesting to you, please consider just subscribing to the podcast and possibly leaving a review, whether it's some constructive criticism or you really enjoyed it and some positive feedback. Please feel free to leave that below, and that will be really very much appreciated. So thank you very much, and I will see you guys next week.